Over the past year, I've been building a desk that fully adapts to my workflow. Whether it's handling my professional work as an architect or keeping up with my constantly shifting hobbies, it's basically a desk with personality issues at this point. And in this video, I want to show you how it works. Now, if you saw my first video on this desk, maybe because you're a subscriber, wink wink, you'll know that I already covered the construction of this desk in detail. So, I'll keep it brief. At its core, this desk was designed around efficiency. It's built mostly from second-hand materials and affordable elements from the local lumberyard. The entire desk is supported by a self-designed frame structure and arrogance. It's a wonderful feeling to build something yourself that reflects your personality, and I probably learned more lessons from building this desk than a toddler with a marker in a white room. Now, my brother is not a carpenter, but there's a home. And I'm not a woodworker, but there will be a desk. That was a quote from the ever-charming Eowyn Reardon, by the way. And if you're suffering from the same symptoms of Dunning-Kruger syndrome as I am, you'll find free plans on my website. There's also a full DIY guide if you want to build your own. On that note, thanks for your support, and let's move on to how it works. Now, at first glance, it might just look like a fancy room divider. But my girlfriend and I actually spent a long time designing the front this way, to give us flexibility with the living room layout. There's plenty of storage for the occasional board game night, a clean geometry that keeps things tidy, and a few shelves with just enough art supplies to say, yes, we are creative. It's not all sunshine and daisies though, as this desk is heavy. It has 8 wheels underneath, which I thought would be enough, but it can still leave marks on the floor, so we don't move it around as much as we'd like. This might not be a problem with other types of flooring, but if you're considering something similar, I'd recommend spending some extra time thinking about weight and material dimensions. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this desk was designed for efficiency, but when it comes to functionality, that's where it really shines. It can switch between activities faster than a politician changes their mind. No clutter, no distractions, and with plenty of storage for big format drawings and illustration work, a pocket for my most used accessories to keep them within arm's reach, and of course, a built-in TV that disappears when not in use. A few upgrades have been added since I posted the original build, with a little wall for hanging miscellaneous objects and a box to collect all the things I can't be bothered to organize. I've also added a sort of pull-out tray to provide some much-needed distance to the 42-inch screen I'm working on, but more on that later. The dual-layer structure of the desk is something I've really come to appreciate, and the fact that I can switch between 3 different work surfaces comes in handy quite often. For example, I can sketch out concepts or illustration work on a clean and spacious surface. Then switch to 3D modeling on the computer while not having to move my video equipment at all. But the position I definitely use the most is with the tray pulled out, as this way I can have all my sketches in front of me while working. I've especially noticed that the side surfaces of the desk are quite practical, as they allow me to change activities without reorganizing the entire desk. There are limitations, of course, with the biggest one being that the desk can't be adjusted in height. This can sometimes be annoying, especially if I'm working long hours, but I'm hoping a good chair will help reduce the problem in the future. Alright, that brings us to the live or let my video title die part of this video. Does it do everything? I mean, it doesn't go out on the weekends, but, you know, neither do I, so. this is the first PC I've ever built, which was both exciting and mildly terrifying, if I'm being honest. So feel free to correct me in the comments if you know better than I do. The case I'm using is the Fractal North, which fits nicely with the rest of the setup. And I went with the extra large version to make sure I had enough room for potential future upgrades and clumsy hands. It's a steel case that comes with a mesh side, and I'm currently trying to interpret the laws here in Germany to see if I can marry this thing. Inside the case, I went with a 7950 X3D CPU and a 4080 Super GPU, which seems like a perfect combo for my mix of activities. The 7950 X3D handles heavy multitasking and CPU heavy work, like complex architectural renderings and video editing, really well. And the 4080 Super takes care of 4K gaming, ray-traced models, and GPU renderings without breaking a sweat. Cooling is handled by an all-in-one 420 liquid cooler, which is probably doing more than it needs to, but at least it stays quiet no matter what I'm working on, which was key for the apartment committee. So far, this build has been able to handle everything, while also keeping my electricity bill reasonable, and all in all, I'm relieved with how it turned out. I'll leave the full parts list in the description, along with everything else you see in this video, if you want to check it out yourself. But of course, none of this would even matter if I couldn't see what I'm doing. So let's talk about the absurdly large screen I've been staring at every day for the last 6 months. Now, if you saw my first video, maybe because you're a subscriber, wink wink again, you might remember that I was a bit nervous about how it would feel over time to use such a big monitor for work. But after 6 months of daily use, I've found that it works better than I expected. Though once again, it's not only sunshine and daisies. The model I'm using is the 42-inch version of the LG C4, which I picked for a couple of reasons. First off, it's a 4K OLED TV with a 120Hz refresh rate, which makes it great for gaming and the occasional movie night. It's also pretty fun to 3D model on such a big monitor, and the screen estate is something I've really come to appreciate. There's also plenty of software tools available to optimize its use as a PC monitor, which you can easily find with a quick search on YouTube. That being said, I think working on a monitor of this size is not for everyone. When using it for productivity, I rarely use applications in full screen, and instead tile up applications across the screen like a multi-monitor setup. My experience with PC gaming is the same as for productivity. Full screen this close is way too big for me, but I prefer playing with a controller and moving back a meter anyway, so I can appreciate the entire screen. But I do think eye strain is a valid concern when using a large screen this close, especially if you're in a high contrast environment. Now, I haven't experienced any burn-in on the screen, at least that I know of, and moving the screen from a horizontal to a vertical position on a daily basis hasn't really been a problem. I use an angled HDMI cable that allows for the TV to change orientation without disconnecting. The wall mount I'm using also hasn't caused any issues so far. The manufacturer of the wall mount actually commented on my last video, saying that it shouldn't be a problem to hold the weight of the TV in a horizontal position over long periods of time. That being said, I'm still looking for a different product that can fit my build. Not because there's anything wrong with the product, but because the lower locking mechanism doesn't seem like a long-term solution for a horizontally hanging TV. But until I find one, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.